Hello guys. In today's video, we're going to be talking about ecology. Let us begin because I'm just going to go right into it with vocabulary words that you guys have probably never heard about. So, let's get into it. The first thing about ecology is, ecology. Ecology is the study of how organisms react with other organisms in their physical environments. Let's say that you work in a factory, right? And this factory requires a lot of good communication. For that factory to continue going, you guys have to have that type of communication. That's similar to an ecosystem. Ecosystem relies on multiple different factors. It doesn't necessarily have to be communication, but it has to be the organisms having their own little role in that community. The next word that we're going to be talking about is biosphere. The biosphere is the area of the earth, such as the surface or the atmosphere, where animals reside, just like some people like to reside in their mother's basement. Biome, a large naturally occurring community in a major habitat. Climate, the conditions or weather in the area over a long period of time. Ecosystem, a biological community of organisms and their physical environments. Before we continue, I'd like to thank our sponsor, NordVPN. That's the end of the sponsor. Biotic factor, a factor that could affect the living habits of an organism. Abiotic factors, non living factors that could affect the living habits of an animal. For example, living in parts of the world with unclean air, such as China, could affect your life later on because you could develop heart cancer. Community, interacting groups of species in a common location. Population. A population is almost the same thing as a community, just that a population is consisted of all the same species in the same area. Organisms. Organisms are anything that is alive on Earth, or anything that has the six characteristics of life. So, yes, even he counts as an organism. Habitat, the natural home or location an animal resides in. Not only an animal, but any type of organism. For example, Jeff's ultra giga gaming setup in his mom's basement can count as his own habitat, because that's the place he'll be living for his entire life. Niche. A niche is the role of a certain organism in its environment. For an example, big trees are meant for homes for smaller organisms and food for other organisms. Competitive exclusion. This principle states that two species that compete for the same resource cannot coexist. Exponential growth is the principle that states when the resources in a habitat are practically unlimited, the species will continue to grow and grow, well, until they reach the max capacity. Logistic growth is pretty different from exponential growth. They're not polar opposites, but they're not identical either. Logistic growth is when a population of animals is starting to level off, right? And their population starts to go down or just like stay at the current level because resources are becoming more scarce. Carrying capacity. The carrying capacity is the complete max of how many animals can be in a location. It's like the complete max. So if the population goes too or much over this, the population might suffer going extinct. Limiting factors is anything that stunts or stops the growth of a population. A limiting factor could be lack of food, lack of water, bad lighting, they can't get enough sunlight for the plants, or it's a very dry place. For an example, let's say that you're looking for a girlfriend. Well, a limiting factor could be, well, you never go to the gym, you're broke, and you stay inside playing Fortnite with the boys. Keystone species. A keystone species is a species that is widely depended on by other species. For example, large oakwood trees provide homes for other animals, food mounds for other animals, and just practically shade from the sun. Another example could be, well, your mom. She's really keystone in upbringing you and raising you, and you rely on her for a lot of things when you're adolescent. A food web is a graphical representation of what eats what in a ecosystem. For an example, the bear would be at the top of the food chain or have the most arrows pointed at it because it practically eats everything it sees. Well, not eats everything, but you get what I mean. Nothing is gonna come up to a bear and start running its pocket. Producers and consumers. A producer is a plant that is practically a food source for all primary consumers. A producer is able to make its own food by through photosynthesis. For an example, let's say the producer is a McDonald's employee making French fries, and the consumer is eating. The next word is going to be heterotroph. As I did for the last vocabulary word, heterotroph would be the consumer. A heterotroph cannot make its own food, so it would either go hunt for other consumers or go eat producers. Herbivore. A herbivore is an animal that can only eat producers or only eats plants. Pretty straightforward. Carnivores. Carnivores are practically the opposite of herbivores because carnivores usually eat herbivores. Carnivores eat any other consumer in their area that is smaller than them and easy to catch. Omnivores are practically just herbivores and carnivores combined because they can eat anything, making their diet more diverse and easier to catch food. Invasive species. An invasive species is a species that was not meant to be in a certain habitat, but comes into a habitat by certain circumstance and continues to ruin or hinder the abilities of all the other species in that habitat. For an example, let's say that you're the hottest kid in school and all the girls want to be with you. But then a random foreign exchange student from probably Romania named George has come and stolen all your girls. That could be an example of an invasive species. A decomposer is practically the cleanup clue of nature. Decomposer breaks down or eats away at any dead organic material or any organic material that's probably not alive and it's just in the way.